Well, that would be cool if we have ballast stones down there near the wreck.
Got a little piece of a ballast stone.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Oh, look at that.
Wow, that's beautiful. Look at that.
That's awesome.
How you feeling, Jess, right now?
Pretty awesome. I'm speechless for once.
The cold, dark waters of Lake Michigan guard their secrets well. For generations, whispers of a lost Confederate treasure have lured dreamers and adventurers. Now, armed with cutting-edge technology, Rick Lagina is on the verge of turning that myth into reality. But the lake doesn't give up its dead easily, and the truth waiting beneath the waves is a tangled web of history. The Whispering Island. Poverty Island. The name itself feels like a warning, a stark label for a lonely patch of land jutting out of the vast, cold expanse of Lake Michigan. For centuries, this island has been a silent witness to furious storms and maritime tragedies. Its shores are a graveyard of forgotten ships, its forests thick with secrets. But among the countless tales of misfortune, one legend shines brighter than any other, a story that whispers of an almost unbelievable fortune. It's a tale of $400 million in Confederate gold lost during the final, desperate days of the Civil War. Truth be told, most people dismissed it as a fanciful campfire story, a myth. But for Rick Lagina, a man whose life has been defined by the pursuit of historical mysteries, it was a siren's call he could not ignore. The legend was specific, filled with details that felt too real to be pure fiction. It spoke of Confederate agents attempting to smuggle their treasury north to Canada, a plan that went horribly wrong. Their heavily laden vessel, caught in a vicious squall, was forced to jettison its precious cargo into the lake just off Poverty Island before sinking into the abyss. For Rick and his determined team, this wasn't just a treasure hunt, it was an obsession.
Your analytics and overlay it onto the historical narrative.
They had pored over old maps, deciphered cryptic letters, and listened to the accounts of local families whose ancestors claimed to have witnessed the event. They had spent countless hours and resources, all fueled by the belief that the gold was real and that they were the ones destined to find it. Now, floating on the calm surface of the lake, armed with the most advanced underwater imaging technology available, they were closer than ever before to discovering the truth. The boat bobbed gently, a tiny speck in the immense blue, but below it a machine was methodically painting a picture of the lakebed, searching for the ghost of a ship and its golden secret. The tension on the boat was a living thing. Every flicker on the sonar screen, every strange shadow that emerged from the digital darkness sent a jolt of adrenaline through the crew. They were chasing a dream, a $400 million dream, and the feeling in the air was electric. They knew that at any moment, the history that had been sleeping for over a century could awaken with a single, definitive ping. But the lake was not about to give up its greatest secret so easily, and the picture it was about to reveal would be far more puzzling than a simple, solitary shipwreck. The sonar unit hummed its steady, rhythmic tune, a sound that had become the heartbeat of the entire operation. On the screen, the dark green and black of the lake floor scrolled by, a mostly empty landscape of silt and rock.
What's that?
The team watched with unwavering focus, their eyes scanning for any anomaly, any shape that didn't belong. They were looking for the clean, sharp lines of a man-made object, the unmistakable silhouette of a sunken vessel. Then it happened. A shape began to emerge from the bottom of the screen, faint at first, then growing clearer with each pass. It was long, defined, and undeniably the remains of a ship. A wave of excitement washed over the crew. This was it. This had to be the wreck from the legend, the ship that had carried the Confederate gold. But as the image sharpened, a collective gasp filled the small cabin. Something was wrong. Or more accurately, something was unexpectedly there. Lying directly across the first shape was another smaller silhouette. It wasn't a trick of the light or a glitch in the software. There were, without a doubt, two distinct wrecks, one seemingly resting on top of the other in a bizarre, watery crossroads. This stunning development sent a ripple of confusion and excitement through the team. Two ships? The original legend only ever spoke of one. Yet as the initial shock wore off, a new, more complex theory began to take shape, one that fit the new evidence with an eerie precision. The story of the lost gold had a second part, a lesser-known chapter that most had forgotten. It told of another ship years later whose crew had supposedly located the site of the sunken treasure. They had begun a salvage operation, perhaps even recovering some of the gold, before they too were claimed by the lake in a sudden storm. Could this be what they were seeing? The evidence of two separate tragedies, decades apart, linked by a single incredible fortune. The larger, older wreck would be the original Confederate vessel, and the smaller one, the ill-fated salvage ship that had come looking for it. It was a mind-bending possibility, but the image on the screen was undeniable. The sonar had revealed a scene of historical chaos, a frozen moment of two disasters colliding. The story was no longer about a single lost ship, it was about a cursed treasure and a watery grave that had claimed victims not once, but twice. The discovery was a monumental leap forward. It transformed a simple legend into a tangible, verifiable sight. They had moved the dial, as Rick would say, from myth to near certainty. Seeing the wrecks on a screen, however, was just the beginning. The next step was the only one that truly mattered. They had to get in the water. They knew that to truly understand what they had found, they needed to see it with their own eyes, to touch the decaying wood, and to search the debris field for the ultimate prize. The hunt for Civil War gold. The sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in fiery shades of orange and purple, but the team barely noticed. Their minds were 1,000 miles away, or rather 100 feet below the surface of the water. The discovery of the two wrecks had changed everything. The energy was no longer just hopeful, it was urgent, almost frantic.
Two ships, one looks like it could possibly be on top of the other. That fits the story.
A plan was hatched with quiet intensity. Tomorrow, at first light, they would dive. There was no other option. The questions raised by the sonar image were too powerful to ignore. Preparations began immediately. The team needed a seasoned diver, someone who knew these treacherous waters and understood the unique challenges of a Great Lakes shipwreck dive. The call went out to John Smith, a local diving expert and a friend of the Grolleau brothers, Mike and Jess, who were leading the underwater operation. John was more than just a skilled diver. He shared their fascination with the Poverty Island legend. He had spent years exploring these waters, and the story of the lost gold was a mutual obsession. He agreed to join without a moment's hesitation. As evening settled, the team gathered on the deck, the cool night air doing little to calm their racing minds. They went over the plan again and again. The first dive would be for reconnaissance. The primary goal was to locate and confirm the second wreck, the smaller vessel lying across the larger one. They needed to assess the condition of the site, to see how broken up the ships were, and to map out the debris field. This was a delicate operation. Under maritime law, they couldn't simply bring up whatever they found. If they discovered anything significant, they would have to approach the state of Michigan and secure a permit for any form of recovery. Every piece of equipment was checked and double-checked. Air tanks were filled, communication systems tested, and high-powered underwater lights prepared. The divers, Mike and John, walked through their procedures, their hand signals, and their emergency protocols. They knew the risks. The water would be brutally cold, and visibility could be poor. Shipwrecks are inherently dangerous places, full of jagged metal, tangled lines, and unstable structures. The weight of expectation was immense, but it was overshadowed by the sheer thrill of what they might find. For Rick Lagina, this was the culmination of a long and arduous journey. He watched the preparations with a look of profound anticipation. He had always believed in the story, even when others scoffed. He had followed the analytics, trusted the historical narrative, and now the two were finally overlapping. The sonar had provided the map. The dive would hopefully provide the proof. As darkness fell over Poverty Island, the team tried to rest, but sleep was elusive. Their thoughts were consumed by the morning to come, by the secrets hidden in the deep, and by the tantalizing possibility of gold. The next day wouldn't just be about confirming the presence of two ships, it would be about searching for the very first clue that could lead them to $400 million. The morning broke crisp and clear, the surface of Lake Michigan like a sheet of polished glass.
Let's get in that water.
The calm conditions were a blessing. The team returned to the precise coordinates from the day before, their boat anchoring directly above the ghostly images on their sonar map. The divers, Mike and John, were already suited up, their movements efficient and practiced. A final check of the comm system, A nod of confirmation, and they slipped over the side of the boat, disappearing beneath the waves with a soft splash. On the surface, the remaining crew huddled around the monitor, which was linked to the divers' communication system. Matty Blake, who was documenting the expedition, held the microphone, his voice steady as he maintained contact. "Divers are down," he announced, his words hanging in the quiet air. The minutes that followed felt like hours. They could only wait, their imaginations running wild with what the divers were seeing in the murky depths. They were flying blind, completely reliant on the voices that would soon crackle through the speaker. Finally, Mike's voice came through, slightly distorted by the water. He confirmed they had reached the bottom and were beginning their search. They were moving slowly, their powerful lights cutting through the gloom. Then he reported seeing something. Debris. Not just a few scattered pieces, but a vast field of it. The first wreck, the shallower of the two, was utterly devastated. It wasn't a recognizable ship so much as a catastrophic explosion of wood and metal. Mike's voice described a scene of pure chaos, as if a tornado had torn through the vessel. Planks were splintered, beams were shattered, and everything was scattered across the lake bed. He theorized that the ship, having sunk in relatively shallow water, had been relentlessly battered by decades of waves and ice. The powerful forces of the Great Lakes had ripped it apart, turning a proud vessel into a pile of wreckage. It was a sobering sight, a testament to the unforgiving nature of the lake. But amidst the destruction, they found a clue. Mike's voice crackled again, this time with a new note of excitement. He was seeing rocks, not the natural jagged rocks of the lake bed, but smooth, rounded stones, all of a similar size, piled together near the wooden remains. He was looking at ballast stones. This was a critical discovery. For the crew on the surface, the words sent a jolt of excitement through them. Ballast stones were the key. They were used in the 18th and 19th centuries on large sailing vessels to provide weight and stability, especially in rough waters. Modern ships didn't need them. The presence of these stones was a powerful indicator of age. It suggested this wreck wasn't from the 20th century, it was much, much older. It was from the right time period. The ballast stones were a tangible link to the past, a solid piece of evidence that they were on the right track. This wasn't just any old shipwreck, it was almost certainly a vessel from the Civil War era. The excitement was palpable. They had found the debris field of a ship from the correct time in history, a ship that could very well be the one from the legend. The chaotic state of the wreck suddenly made perfect sense in the context of the story. They found the ships, they found the history, but the gold remains a ghost. Is it right for modern hunters to claim a fortune born from a nation's tragedy, or should the secrets of the lake be left in peace? Let me know below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.